Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fine.
Good morning, everybody. Well, new week. Oh, hold on. I'm not hearing my music here. I guess I restarted my computer over the weekend. I totally forgot about it. There we go. Interesting weekend. And Vital here saying interesting how he will break out the current political situation. I'm actually a little bit unsure how the market's going to react to it today. But at the moment, I'm thinking maybe this means de-escalation. So let's get into charts first. Well, let's start with oil. Oil starting a little bit higher, but actually lower now. So like they tried to get 100 and then failed it, essentially. So that's kind of curious from a technical perspective. If we close down today, for some of those CTAs and so forth, treasuries are recovering, and they're good. They're past Friday's low. S&P 500 also kind of recovering. So it's picture over there doesn't look quite as optimistic, shall we say. Gold and silver kind of hurting actually, and copper. And I honestly I'm kind of bullish copper in the long run, but during this whole crisis, it's been a little bit of a wild ride, hasn't it? Yeah, 6J. Okay, so the Japanese yen continues to be at levels that has spurred intervention in the past, and I'm not hearing anything. We haven't seen anything. I'm kind of wondering what's going on. Maybe Japan waits until this whole Iran thing like blows over. I don't know. It's a little disconcerting to me though, because the Japanese yen really blowing up here could really hammer other markets. And then we got Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin is looking okay here. Tell you what though, it's been a long 2 months. 2 months of like nothing is a little unusual for Bitcoin, I think. All right, so what happened over the weekend? Well, first of all, on Friday, Donald Trump announced that they had conducted strikes on Kharg Island. Kharg Island is an island off of Iran that is basically responsible for refining like all of Iran's oil products. So basically all of their money comes through there. Comes through that one island. So it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big strategic weakness of Iran's. And they just destroyed all of the military installations that were on that island. So and then the other thing that we've heard related to that is that there is a deployment of a few thousand Marines. They are currently coming over on a ship and supposedly should be here later this week. And we believe that they are intended to be able to take over Kharg Island if they decide to go through with that. Okay. So the Trump administration's current strategy is threaten Kharg Island. And meanwhile, it was kind of starting to turn in, can the U.S. just take the island? I think probably they can. I think with 2,500 Marines, they probably could take the island. Now, Iran probably shoots a lot of missiles, so he might regret taking the island. But Iran would hurt way more than the United States, right? That would be Iran's entire economy, right? Now the other thing that's been happening is that Iran has said that the strait is only closed to the U.S. and Israel, which is a very, very curious de-escalation in my opinion. Because here's the thing. There are hardly any U.S. or Israeli ships over there. Okay? Like, it is stuff coming out of Saudi Arabia and Oman. So it kind of seems to me like that's a de-escalation. That ships won't be attacked anymore. Now, I'm not seeing widespread reports of all of the boats going through the strait now or anything like that. So the thing is that, you know, them saying it's closed to only the U.S. and Israel, that's one that I wouldn't necessarily expect the robots to figure out. And hence why maybe the initial gap up was a buy, that in Karg Island, but then we are kind of moving down precipitously in oil right now, I think, is because that's a pretty major escalation from Iran. And that would actually kind of suggest, I think, that we don't get a U.S. invasion of Karg Island. That the situation will, that basically Iran is folding before the U.S. does that. Now, the one caveat to that is Iran has been trying to negotiate, and Donald Trump has been saying, well, they're not willing to do what it takes yet. So what is it that they've got to do? Because I think that what they've got to do is the old regime steps down and they have an election and they elect a secular government, right? So I don't think they're going to do that. So maybe we do get an invasion of Karg Island. But then another thing is that the U.S. is trying to put together a coalition to keep the strait open. So getting all of the countries to come in and you know, keep that strait open. And they're also calling on China to help keep the strait open. So the Trump has a meeting with Xi later this week, which has been highly anticipated, like way big time in the making. And if Trump were to like pull out of that, I think that it would be, you know, like China would feel like they're losing face and things like that. So that might also put pressure on things. So I think that the balance of it all is that we are heading towards a de-escalation. That at the end of the week, it was really like, I don't see how this doesn't go further. And I would say that those dynamics are still there. But the actions that we have seen over the weekend kind of suggest that there's likely to be a de-escalation soon. So, and if there is, well, then oil is going to get slammed, treasuries are going to recover, and the S&P 500, well, presumably should recover. But I am a little bit concerned that in the S&P 500, that a couple of cracks have kind of surfaced that might make, probably they should recover, but it might make things a little bit different over in the S&P 500 going forward. And there's still going to be a somewhat of an oil shock that's going to be economically negative. So we are still going to have to deal with that. Is Russia going rich in this situation? So they do make more money from it. And the US has even like been lifting sanctions on them. So Russia's going to make some money from it, yeah. I think overall, though, it's probably a net negative for Russia. Just because, you know, Iran is a pretty big ally with them and everything. Like it really was Russia, Iran, and China. And if you take Iran out of the picture, and then Russia has been so weakened from the Ukraine war. Yeah, one of the things that I thought was kind of funny was Iran was like, "Oh, you're giving them the U.S. drones and stuff like that. That's an active war. Now we're at war with Ukraine." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, because you haven't been providing Russia with drones for like the past 5 years and have been basically at war with Ukraine for all that time. Are you kidding me? Good grief." Anyways, ultimately, in the end, I really think that this is a big strategic move against China. You know what, though? Even though I think that a lot of this is against China, like this is take care of the Venezuela situation, because Russia and China were basically kind of egging Venezuela on to create trouble down there. And then, resolve the Iran situation. And then, the focus can be entirely on Taiwan, and that makes it difficult for China to attack Taiwan. But I kind of questioned the timing of it all. Like, we've got this big meeting. There's tariffs and trade deals that they want to make with China. So I'm not sure that having the Iran situation blowing up just before that meeting is what you want for that meeting to be successful, right? So there was a story last week, which by the way, you want to talk about, we always get into the social media thing, right? But it's just kind of unavoidable with the way that the world is. There was a headline last week that Iran had plans to attack West Coast cities. And the left, I've seen a lot of left-wing people going absolutely bonkers about this story. They think that the story is completely made up. That's just like a pretext for the United States to escalate or something like that. But the thing that I find curious about it is that the FBI notified cities that Iran had plans to attack West Coast cities. And the story that we read said that Iran would launch drones from a watercraft, and that they notified the cities of this in February. So I don't know. This whole thing kind of started in March, didn't it? Well, March 8th. The whole thing started March 8th. Right? This is March 8th. So Iran has this like the jewel of the Iranian Navy was this basically aircraft carrier thing that was built entirely for launching drones. And that was like the first thing that got destroyed. So it seems to me that like the US caught wind that Iran planned that they could possibly do this. And I kind of wonder if that was the thing that pushed Donald Trump over the edge. You know what I mean? Like there's been a couple of situations in the past where Donald Trump has said like, oh, once they said they were going to do this, that was like, I was done. There's certain things that you can do, which is basically like threaten the American people, that really, I think, genuinely triggers Donald Trump. I think that at least some of Donald Trump's public behavior is a persona. Like it probably he is like that, but like I think he exaggerates it. I think he exaggerates it on purpose to put on a certain persona for strategic reasons. But I think that is something that genuinely triggers him. So they caught wind of that. He's like, okay, we're not going to deal with this anymore. And that's when they moved in to attack Iran. And the first thing they did was take out that boat. Okay. So all this stuff that I think that the left wing is saying about like this, this is a fake story and they just made it up and just to be able to attack Iran, I think nonsense. But that's the thing that kind of makes me think when I think in relation to China, I don't think necessarily that they wanted to do it right now. And that was maybe the trigger that kind of led to the timing. Kind of interesting, don't you think? But I think we'll have a lot better picture idea of where things are going by the end of this week. Last week, especially like the beginning of the week, it was kind of like, what's going on? Like there's a war. It's still going. We're not really hearing anything. We're not really getting any headlines. What's going on? And remember, I kept saying, well, I kind of wonder if maybe part of this is they're just kind of trying to buy time. That their U.S. has so many targets to strike. They are trying to degrade Iran's drone-making capabilities, their drone launching capabilities, and that just requires another 2 weeks of strikes to get them to that point. Because the boats, like the U.S. Navy, is not in the strait. It's too dangerous right now, they say. That Iran will launch missiles and stuff at them. So, so far, what we're seeing kind of coincides with that theory. That it was just, they were just kind of buying time, and now that they've got enough of that infrastructure destroyed and everything is kind of on schedule, now they're moving to, okay, so now what we got to do is get a coalition of people in there. We can take Arg Island if Iran, to really force Iran to capitulate, and yada, yada, yada. So, and don't get me wrong, it's not like this is just like a complete, astounding U.S. victory per se. I'd say the way that this has gone strategically is kind of interesting, is going to have a really big, long-lasting impact on how wars are fought and planned for in the future. You know what they do? They're always planning for the last war and not the next war. Well, the ability to strike with drones is a pretty big deal. The Iran were able to take out 2 THAAD anti-missile batteries. They're able to take out this radar installation that will take like 8 years for us to rebuild. It was the only one outside of the United States. Like those are pretty significant losses on the US's part. And we've spent a lot of money just doing this overall, right? So Iran did really well. And yet the US just completely dominated them. We were able to fly in and take air superiority with hardly any effort at all. It seems like now that they're really striking at the regime, that protesters on the ground are like giving the U.S. intel what to do. That sort of thing. What else? There was one other thing. Oh, yeah. So the Iranians are pushing a rumor. They hit, what is the word? They conducted a strike on Benjamin Netanyahu's, one of his residences. So, and so Iran is saying, oh, we killed him. We killed Netanyahu. And you're seeing, I tell you what, man, the way that the left has kind of been just like a soundboard for Iranian propaganda is a little... Listen, when people tell you they're not on your team, believe them. But this is not the first time that I have seen rumors that Netanyahu is dead. In fact, I think this is the 4th time. I think this is the 4th time I've seen it. And last time, it was like people were talking about it for like a month. For like a whole month. Oh, he's dead. He's not around anymore. They put memes like of Netanyahu and, you know, oh, why is it so hot in here? Because he's in hell. And you know what? When that has happened in the past, the Israel doesn't say a thing. Israel doesn't say a thing and just kind of lets the people online that are saying that he's dead look silly when he eventually shows up, and you never know when. So that's probably another thing that you might see, is people saying that he's dead, and then, you know, that festers for a week or two, and then, you know, he shows up and whenever. Not that it's impossible that he actually is dead. Could be. That would be really interesting in Israel, but it might lead to an even more hardline government in Israel. Don't feign naivety to the fact that portions of the right fell into that trap too. Yeah, well, I'm telling you what, man. I really think it's a psyop. This is like, I hate the conspiracy theory nonsense, and I know I'm driving into a conspiracy theory here, but I genuinely think that there is a psyop to magnify anti-Semitic voices on the right. I saw this thing the other day that like Candace Owens has some manager guy of something that is basically like gets on podcasts and talks pretty openly about what they're doing, and he says that Candace Owens' whole strategy is basically to play into all of the toxicity of online. Which I think includes, you know, fighting with the rest of the right, with Erica Kirk, right? Who watches this lady? I don't know anybody that watches her. I don't see anybody online talk about her like that they really like her. Like anytime that there's a thread anywhere about her, it's 100% negative. So who's pushing this? Well, I hear it a lot from the media. I hear other outlets complaining about her, but I'm not convinced that the people are actually watching her. Same with why can I never frickin' remember his name? But this other kind of the right-wing Groyper guy, I don't know. Some people say that he's popular among the kids. If you say so, I think it's a psyop. I think that he is being boosted, and that there is a real effort to boost anti-Semitism on the right. And quite frankly, it seems like it's working to me too. It seems like that the anti-Semitism on the right is rising, and I see a lot of people. They kind of take the attitude of, we don't care what happens to Israel. We don't want to help them because they're not Christian. Right? Is like quite literally that's what people say, which is kind of shocking to me. But no, not Andrew Tate. Does anybody? So I saw a thread on Reddit the other day that was like, why do people? Yeah, it was Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is the one that I'm like, who actually watches this guy? Why is he, everybody's acting like he's popular, but I only ever see other media talking about him? What's with that? Okay, Andrew Tate. Does anybody watch Andrew Tate? There was a thread on Reddit complaining like, why do people listen to what Andrew Tate says to get women rather than listening to women themselves? And I thought it was a really funny thread because the whole thread, it was so Reddit, just going on about, you know, Andrew Tate has these insecurities and these people have those same insecurities and all of this kind of stuff. And maybe there's some truth to that. But I'm sitting here like, does anybody actually listen to him anymore? Like, he had a couple of clips on TikTok that were kind of relevant at the time. I think he said a couple of things that were interesting and kind of moved the conversation. And then we all kind of found out that he's a complete creep, and everybody, ditched him. I don't think that he's that popular anymore. But I bet you if we go and we look at his, well, I don't know. You might go and look at like his live streaming numbers and say, oh, those are, but there could be view botting for that, right? That's another thing that goes on. I would say probably a majority of the really popular streamers out there are view botting, from all of the information that I've gotten from people that are kind of experts in this stuff. But I know the thing was funny because like as it pertains to getting girls, I've seen studies and many case studies on this that suggest that yes, women do not know how to pick up women. like Reddit did an experiment like this once where they had this guy and they had the girls like redo his profile, like pick which pictures to use and what the profile was going to say and all of that. And he still just wasn't getting any matches. And then the guys did it. The guys did his profile and he started getting matches, like way more matches and or dates, because he was, they were telling him what to say to people too, right? And then they went back and they did it again, and they had gay guys redo his profile, and that was the best. He had the most success with gay guys. So it seems to me that the old adage, you don't ask a fish how to catch fish, is maybe true. And I do think that there is some research that suggests this too. And they're all going on about that. I'm just kind of sitting here like, well, listen, you want to know the sorts of things that matter, there are statistics on this. Although some of it you do have to. So I remember one thing in particular that it was like Match. It's like the people that bought Tinder, but before they bought Tinder, and they had done their own internal study about what kind of pictures did best. And the long and short of it was basically that men did better if they were like ignoring the camera. Like the guy was looking off into the distance contemplatively or something like that. And the girls did better if they were looking at the camera and making a flirty face. That way, and that was basically like these are the things. Also, it seemed like that guys did better if they had pictures of them in a group, whereas the women did not. Because guys think when they see a girl in the group that they're trying to hide which one they are. Whereas when girls see a guy in the group, that means, oh, he has friends, is like the social proof. So like the idea was that women react more to the social proof. Then the really big thing was that they found that like there were girls that were like conventionally attractive on every metric. Like if you were to take an AI and have the AI just look at the measurements on their face and all that sort of thing, it would rate them like the top, the 10 out of 10. And they found that particularly for women, that those were not the girls that got the most matches. Of course, they'd get a lot of matches, but they didn't get the most matches. That in order to get the most matches, you had to have some sort of an X factor. Like if you were a really cute goth girl or whatever the thing was. Basically something that some people don't like, but the people that do like it really like it. And that's the thing that would elevate you to be the top performers. So that was a really, really interesting study. And I relied upon that a lot for some of my research when I was dating. And I did pretty good, at least compared to most men on Tinder and even most men in Utah. But you can't find it anymore. They took it down because apparently it was like too offensive or something, and they took the research down. So sometimes some of this information is hard to find, but it does exist. Let's see here. What's this? Mark Plyer was repeatedly rejected repeatedly due to all his views being fake bots. So he wasn't allowed to make his movie, for example. He had to independently develop it and then succeeded, matched #1 with Disney. So his views are real, but the facts and numbers actually said they were all fake and that all YouTube views are fake, for example. Nah, I don't know about others, but one turned out to be real. Wow. Imagining having to have some personality to gain matches. Yeah. Dating apps are evil. I do kind of wonder. So like, here's the thing. I'm gonna say something really, really controversial here, okay? Dating on online dating apps in Utah is better than it is basically everywhere else in the country because women get on dating apps with the intention of trying to find a husband and actually actively participate. So the problem with dating apps really genuinely is that women are too picky. They get too many matches and they're too picky. When you get a woman that isn't just trying to get dates or whatever the deal is, but they are actively trying to get married, and it's not just like, you know, because I think most people at that age, it's like, yeah, I do want to get married someday. But Mormons, it's like, I'm behind. I should be married. This is like the only thing in my life that matters is getting married right now. Okay, is the way that Mormons deal with it, right? And that means that the girls, they match with more guys, and it is in a lot of cases, you know, basically every profile that they see that is even remotely compatible, that is, even if it's another Mormon, you swipe right. It's that simple. And we don't have those same problems. So I really do genuinely believe that all the problems with dating apps is with women being too picky or not serious about it. That they do it for, you know, they get kind of like an ego boost from it, but they don't have any intention of ever going out on a date. Right? If the app was like this, you put your availability for the week, and they put and everybody else puts their availability for the week, and then you see the profiles. If you both swipe right, a date is automatically scheduled for you. If that was the app, it would be a different thing. I'm telling you. Because and then if you didn't go to the date, your profile would get hit. Oh, dude, maybe I should just do it that way. Maybe it's that simple. That you will be given a date. Maybe you have a place for dates. But if you match, you will be going on a date. None of this like, oh, we got to talk first. And then, because some girls, man, I tell you what, they want to talk for like a whole month. And then maybe they'll meet you in person. If you're dating on a dating app, don't bother with that. It should be like, within the first 10 messages, you like, I would open with saying something about them, something that's a compliment that isn't about related to their genes. It's a compliment that's related to a decision that they made. Like, you can compliment an item of clothing that they have because they picked that item of clothing or the way that they chose to do their hair. But don't tell them like, oh, you have really nice boobs, okay? Because she didn't decide that, or genes decide that, right? And then just to verify that they're not a robot, and then you set up a date, and then you stop talking to them. You don't talk to them until the date. So I'm telling you, the more you talk before you meet in person, the worse it tends to go, because they're talking to all these other people. Talking to all these other people, you get the comparison. You're giving them reasons to not meet you, essentially. And when you're in person with a woman, completely different ballgame. And then you kind of have the advantage once you're meeting in person. But you know what? We're talking about complex systems. I shouldn't continue to go too deep into these sorts of social issues unless there's some sort of tie-in to complexity, right? And from what I understand about complex systems, an equilibrium has to be met some way, somehow. So I think that most guys have kind of determined that dating apps kind of suck. And I think that the popularity of Tinder and these other websites have really gone down. It's either going to be that another app comes along that solves those problems, or somewhere an equilibrium has to be found, because under the current regime, where you basically girls are only swiping on the top 20% of men, that is not an equilibrium. That's not sustainable. Excuse me. I think they can find a guy in their church with more success. Okay, so here's something that's really kind of weird though. When it comes to, well, so like Mormons, and you go to a singles ward, and granted, a lot of people do meet and get married in singles ward, so it is a thing. But there is also kind of a thing that's like, you don't necessarily date people from your singles ward. Because if you go on a date and it goes badly, then that girl goes and tells everybody else and poisons the well. So people are kind of afraid to, and then you have to see them every Sunday too. That's another thing. Then you have to see them every Sunday. So that's why no ward. Oh yeah, sorry, you probably don't understand the terminology. So in Mormon churches, a congregation is called a ward, W-A-R-D, and wards are organized into a stake. So S-T-E-A-K, or no, S-T-A-K-E, like a stake in the ground, not a steak like that you eat. And there are wards called single wards, which are only for single people. And they split them into two groups. There's like 18 to 35, and 35 and above, I think is where the line is. Or no, maybe it's 30. I think it's more 30. Because I was like, when I was looking, I was about 30, and I was like right on the edge, and it kind of sucked being in the younger ward. Because they were all young kids, never been married before, didn't have any kids, and I was looking for people that were married and before and did have kids, because otherwise it's like, what are you doing with your life? Yeah. So anyways, usually what happens is within that stake, at least in Utah, because there's enough Mormons, within that stake, all of the singles will go to the singles ward within that stake. Or maybe there's like a 4-stake area that they include. Okay. So it's a congregation. It's based on where you live, determines which church and time you go to. It's not like, most Christian churches, you just pick which church because you want to go to because you like the pastor. It's kind of more like the Catholic Church. You have like an assigned district. Anyways, I gotta go back here. I'm told certain people, including a couple family members, you always fail because you're an idiot, and at the bar and etc. And go to the bookstore and try to hit it up a conversation, buy a book too. And the bookstore is my common advice to maybe start a conversation. If it succeeds, your likely of being a real person is much more higher than of other places. Yeah, but except for that, you're gonna meet a very specific demographic at a bookstore these days. Like in the 90s, it would have been a different thing, but these days, who goes to a bookstore? Probably a Libby. Am I wrong? I'm meeting my future wife in the gym. Okay, I find that a gym it depends on the kind of gym. The Globo gym is probably one of the worst places to meet people. I think. I don't like to be bothered during my workout. Could be wrong, but if you're really good looking, though, you probably could find people at the gym. So that kind of like another thing that kind of drives me crazy is that, like, isn't the place where you're supposed to go and meet single people supposed to be like the bar or the club? But you can't meet people. The music is too loud to meet people. There's been this trend of soft raves, which is really like they have the rave in the afternoon instead of in the evening. But there needs to be soft clubs, which is, yes, it goes from 5 to 11, but also they turn the music down. And they have food. You can order food too. I think that would work better. No, I think that the best way to meet people right now, though, is to have some sort of niche hobby and find meetups and groups related to that hobby. It's probably the best way. And by the way, that hobby shouldn't be lazy tennis. It's not lazy tennis. What do we call it? Oh man, I don't even know what it is. You know, it's tennis for non-athletic people. Motivates me being strong and work out and choose a healthy. Part of it wasn't lazy. Pickleball. That's right. Pickleball. Yes. Don't. It shouldn't be pickleball. I wouldn't pick like whatever is the really big trending hobby right now. I also kind of am against like doing cosplay or like comic conventions right now. So like here's the thing. I saw this post on TikTok the other day where this guy was complaining because his wife is conservative or is a Donald Trump voter. And so now he's in the cosplay community and he makes cosplays. And now there's all of these woke cosplay chicks trying to cancel him, is what he was complaining about. And the whole time I was watching this, I was thinking, well, the problem is you didn't pick a unpopular enough hobby. See, you picked a popular hobby that is easy, right? Like who doesn't want to go and buy a cosplay online from a store and then prance around a convention and get a ton of attention for it? I would effing love to do that. Wouldn't you love to do that? And just get all of this admiration for the costume and how hot you are? Everybody would love to do that. Easy hobby. Okay? Who likes to sit and practice their handwriting for hours every day? Nobody does that stuff. Nobody does that. You got to pick something hard that nobody does, right? And if you do that, because the woke people, they're lazy. They are. They're lazy. They're attracted to it because they get some sort of social praise to it for minimal effort. That's why they're there. You pick something that requires like real skill and dedication, you don't get those people. And right now, the thing is pickleball. I mean, I don't mean to, if you're doing pickleball, good for you. You enjoy it and everything. But pickleball is easy. It's too easy. I'll tell you, I shouldn't tell you this. I really shouldn't tell you this. And I'd wager you suck at it, probably. But I bet you I would be better at tennis than pickleball. Like relative to the like if there's a distribution, where's my, oh, I don't have it turned on. Hold on a second. I have to draw a picture here to explain the situation. Come on. Well, it's being weird. Oh, it opened up way over here. That's why. Okay. So if we've got a distribution of all pickleball players, and I'll maybe show up right here at first because I've never played it before. But then if you were to take a distribution, not of all pickleball players, but of all people playing pickleball, let's say, right? And then if you were to take a distribution of all people playing tennis, I'm probably more like here. Maybe slightly better than the average person because I can actually run and I'm still fit, but not good by any means. Okay, here's the thing I shouldn't tell you. In the United States, and it depends on the kind of guy that you are, because I'm a tiny guy, right? But if you're like a big guy, a bigger guy, or you're a muscular guy, and like you can get fit, because I think one of the issues is that if you're a girl and you're really, really fit, you want a guy that's really, really fit. So you're gonna find a guy that's a bodybuilder, and if you don't fit into that aesthetic at all, then it's not gonna work for you, right? But if you are going for that, you're a guy and you're looking for the girls, the place to do it is weightlifting. And I mean like a weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting. There are so many women in US weightlifting. It's really kind of weird, actually. And I wouldn't say that it's the case in every gym, but most gyms in the US are half, if not more than half, women. And some of the best athletes are all women. Like if the US ever gets a gold medal in weightlifting, it's probably more likely to come from a woman than from a man. Because not only do we have more women doing it in the United States, but we have our women are better relative to other women in the world. There's just something about it that is like they're not as attracted to bodybuilding. The guys all go to bodybuilding. The girls aren't as attracted to bodybuilding, so they end up going to weightlifting. Now, you can also do CrossFit. CrossFit is also a great way to do it. But CrossFit has kind of declined in popularity. There's problems with CrossFit, all that sort of thing. But I'll tell you what, man. If you're doing something where you're seeing the same person every day during your workout, when you go to the Globo gym, it's kind of like you're just out in public, you know? And there's some of those gyms, they're too large to have the same community. You see completely different people there every time you go. There's way more people than you can keep track of, stuff like that, right? But if you go to a weightlifting gym, you're talking about seeing the same 6 to 12 people every day. And when you work out with people like that, you get so close. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the chances that like if you're the same age and you're compatible and all of these sorts of things, and there's a girl there that's compatible with you, the chances of you hooking up together are like really, really high. Even though the advice would be don't shit where you eat, or wherever they say, right? like if you start dating somebody and then it doesn't work out and you have a fallout, that's pretty bad. But then the thing that you can do is you have your hobby. Maybe it's weightlifting, maybe it's volleyball. Volleyball would maybe be another one that you can do. You find a girl that you like in your boyfriend, girlfriend, right? And she's fit, but she's not into your sport. You bring them into your sport, and then you get really close that way. That works. That's better. And then if you break up, usually the girl doesn't want to have anything to do with the sport anymore. So you're okay. Then it works. So I shouldn't tell you these things, but I'm telling you. It's the that's kind of like the edge for you there. It's a place where there's some edge. People don't realize it. Tennis is not easy, and yes, it does. But I've taken tennis. If there was probably a sport that my body type is well suited to, it's probably tennis. The U.S. strong woman champion is a trans. In the weightlifting sphere, there was this whole thing about that, and I think that a lot of it had to do with the administration at the time, but when the U.S. Weightlifting Federation said that like they were going to allow trans athletes, it was such a problem for the girls. I tell you what, they were all so very upset. And then they switched it around, and now everything's fine. The male weightlifting sphere is going to be more competitive globally. Well, it is. I mean, but the thing is that like the percentage of men that go into weightlifting in other countries compared to the U.S. is like insane. Like it's really insane. In the U.S., if you have the body type to be good at weightlifting, you probably go into football. Frankly, those guys all do football. If we didn't have football and we had all of those guys would go into weightlifting instead, then it would be no competition. We would be the best. But it's just like very, very, very low percentage of men go into it for whatever reason. And there are some countries, kind of more Eastern Europe. So Germany is pretty good, but then you get into the Eastern Bloc countries and it gets more and more popular. And the Russians, it's very popular with Russians. North Korea has a very good weightlifting program, but I think that that's because the whatever we call them, the Nox or whatever, like actively promote it and or promote steroid use. Almost certainly on steroids. Who else? I can't think of any others. But there are some places where weightlifting is actually popular, and it's very common for a guy to get into weightlifting when they're like 3. Can you believe that? But actually, it turns out that for Olympic weightlifting, the chances of you being really good at it are significantly higher if you start when you're very, very young. And the reason is this. There is basically a physical limit to how good you can be at weightlifting. And that limit is basically what percentage of your muscle is fast twitch muscle fiber. So the more fast twitch muscle fiber that you have, the better. And the issue with fast twitch muscle fiber is that it's not like you can just go to the gym and do this one type of exercise and build up the muscle, and then you'll be all fast twitch muscle because you did the right exercise or something. It doesn't work like that. You can influence the amount of fast twitch muscle fiber that you have, but it takes a very, very long time, like years and years and years and years. And a lot of that stuff is going to be determined when you are in your youth as well. So if when you are in your youth and before you enter puberty, you are doing power exercises, then you're going to build a lot more fast twitch muscle fiber than somebody that starts when they're like 25, when they're already close to their peak physical fitness. Like after 26, generally people aren't as competitive. It's a sport for like 19 to 26 year olds. Go figure. So you start when you're 3. But for me, well, I probably have more fast twitch muscle fiber than most because I've been doing weightlifting for so long. But I am not genetically predisposed to it at all. I am the ectomorph. I'm even if I'm fat, I look skinny. Even when I'm absolutely ripped, I look skinny. I'm sure. Well, I've put on a decent amount of muscle. I've never gone the hypertrophy route. So maybe if I did a hypertrophy cycle for a year or two, maybe then I would look like bulky. But I'm just slender. I'm slender in every way. So my understanding is that means you have more slow twitch muscle fiber, and you're probably going to be better at things that involve more endurance. But I've never been a good runner. Maybe it was just because I had poor running form. Like my feet run sideways, and if I fixed that and worked at it, I could be good at running, maybe. But that just doesn't appeal to me. So I think that the things that you would probably be best at would be more like soccer or tennis. So that's why I decided the sport for me would be tennis. But at that point it was too late. So I didn't do it. But maybe if I was to go back into like I was 14 and I was going to pick a sport to dedicate the rest of my life to, and then maybe it should have been tennis. Granted, I'm not so sure that my body was designed to be good at a sport. I think that my body was designed to be good at being able to sit inside in front of a screen all day. I can sit longer without problems and not get fat sitting in front of a computer all day compared to other people. Just can. That's the thing my body can do that's weird that most people's can't. And then I got the slender fingers for the typing. Yep. Built to be a gamer. Should have been a gamer. I was born too early. So too early for the esports craze. I was already washed, I was already too old by the time that esports became a thing. I was like, if esports became a big thing when I was like 14, and I bet you I would have done it. Don't know if I would have gotten very far, but I would have done it. Well, I tell you what, I was kind of excited for the treasuries this morning when I came in and saw that there had kind of been a pretty good rally at the beginning of the session. But once again, during our regular session, it has been incredibly tight and boring. By the way, what's our... Well, it does have volatility at 5.89. Is that number actually correct? It is. This is our first... Well, I don't know. We're just kind of like in the middle of these two extended session lines, not doing anything. So, kind of curious. I'm trying to think back. How did we get into dating online? Oh, because we were talking about Andrew Tate, yeah. Okay, so now I remember. There was one other thing, like way back, that I was like, oh, maybe I'll come back to this. So now I'm going to come back to it. I really hate Reddit. So, the hobby recently has been handwriting and calligraphy. Basically, I want to take notes at work because I'm afraid that I'm going to fall asleep in meetings. So I take extensive notes. And I did this, we did like a conference thing. It was like a day-long thing where people gave talks. So I'm trying to not fall asleep, and I'm writing with a pen and notebook that they gave me. I try doing print and I'm just not fast enough, so I start doing cursive. And I do cursive, and one, I don't think that I'm fast enough, but then two, it looks absolutely terrible. Looked absolutely terrible. So I'm like, this is embarrassing. I need to do something about this. So then I went down into that rabbit hole, and it turns out that there are lots of things that you can do that are still practical to do when you are older to improve your handwriting. One of which being writing with a different way of writing. The kind of more 17th century style of italic script is easier to read than the cursive that they teach you in school, I think. It's more legible, even when it's messy. So that helps. And then you get a good fountain pen, so you're not putting pressure on the paper. And you have good smooth paper that's consistent so that you're not constantly adjusting to the rough paper, pushing your pen out of a straight line. You get better at it. And so I've gone through my practice book. I would like to move on to a slightly different thing. Like I want to do Spencerian calligraphy, like the kind that you would do like on wedding invitations, for instance, where you have a nib that like gets bigger and smaller based on how much pressure you're putting on, right? But I need to get some supplies for that. And I kind of limit myself. I could go crazy and just buy a ton of stuff and use all the money, but I will only do like one thing a paycheck. Okay, one thing. Paycheck comes, I'll get one thing, then wait. And there was a sale, so I ended up buying shirts. So I'm kind of like waiting too long. So that means that I have to just continue practicing my handwriting, my italic script. And so what should I write? Well, I could do a diary, but then I have to think about what I'm putting down, and I don't know what I want to necessarily write down. I don't feel like I'm to there yet. So I started finding quotes that I liked and writing down those quotes instead. So I get on Reddit. I'm like, oh, I bet you that there's a quote subreddit. So I go to the quote subreddit. Oh my gosh, the quotes on that subreddit are so bad. Half of them are political trash, and the other half of them are kind of more like jokes or funny things, and not anything that I feel would like be beneficial or helpful, like philosophy for life to make people better people. Oh my gosh. Like even, and then I'm like, oh, maybe there's a subreddit specifically for that. So I go to like the motivational quotes subreddit. Terrible. It just shows me the way that the average Redditor thinks is not the way that I think, and I find the way that they think abhorrent. I think it is an objectively negative worldview that will lead you to failure. Especially the thing I see in Reddit, especially, is the envy. The I can't have that thing, so nobody should have that thing. I'm telling you, man, that's an attitude that will keep you poor, will keep your society poor. Avoid that attitude. If other people are successful, you should be happy for them. You should try and work together with them to help them be even more successful. They'll help to make you successful. That's how you find success. And like being envious of people. That just leads to negative feelings and modes of behavior that do not help you. Do not help you. When you write cursive or print, do you consciously separate them or do you mix them all together? Because apparently it's a psychotic trait, if I remember correctly. Oh, yeah, that's kind of weird. No, I don't. I don't do that. I specifically do italic. But the thing is that apparently there are problems with print. So like the way that you're typically taught, right, is you'll do like make a really good circle and then a line, and that's your A, right? A really good circle and a line, and that's your B, right? And then they start teaching you cursive. You go A, E, E, right? And these letters are kind of the way the evolution went was Spencerian. Spencerian was like, we're gonna find these forms like this. There's this circle and this circle, and then we're gonna like combine them together into like what is most natural for nature. And Spencerian was meant primarily to be elegant and flowing. And then people took it to like, well, and then it was also meant to be able to write a lot, because you'd write mostly with your arm, right? And then people took that and kind of converted that down into the way that they teach you at school, cursive. If they teach cursive, they don't teach it anymore, right? But before all of that, like in the 16 and 1700s, or 1800s, up until like the 1880s, let's say, you would do italic script. You would do italic script. And italic script was basically people had to write with a quill. You'd write with an instrument that has a chisel, so it's like this, where if you go this way, it's thinner than if you go this way, right? And then it was kind of built to kind of have a rhythm to it. So when you do the A in italic script, you coming down, and then you go up like this. Yeah. B. 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 For the F in italic script, you do this, and you don't connect it. G is just like your A. H. See how there's kind of like a little space there? But that actually makes it easier to read, because people just read this part right here. People just look at the tops of your letters. I. J. You don't connect the J. K is the same as your cursive K. L. So another thing is like an L. In cursive, you would do an L like this, right? But in italic, you're either going to go, you always do a diagonal line like this, because that's the way that will make the line the smallest, right? And then you can either go straight up like this, or you can lift. I tend to lift, which might be slower, but L, M. So when I go like that, right, it's just kind of a natural motion to go that way. And I have a whole lot of practice with this pen, doing it this way. M. N. P. Q. R. So in your cursive, you do an R like this. And I don't know why, but I always found that R was hard to read. In italic, you just do an R. R, and then you connect off of the R like that. Yes. T. T is the most characteristic, I don't know, like if you like the letter that exemplifies italic the most, it's the T. You get a T, you got a little tail like this, and then there's more line on this side than on this side. T. U. Oh, that's a terrible U. That's more of a U. V. W. The W's, you go all the way up. X. So there are some kind of splits, and one might say that it's like you're skipping letters altogether. So basically what happens is a lot of people that learn traditional cursive, they do kind of end up doing their own half and half, like half text and half print, simply to make it more legible. Okay, what's going on this move up? There's not a headline I missed, did we? Dissent says too much is being made of the run-up in oil prices from Iran's retaliatory measures to U.S.-Israeli strikes, claiming coverage of the risks around the Strait of Hormuz is being amplified by anti-Trump media bias and is part of Iran's strategy. Prices will eventually return to levels that are lower than what the oil futures curve anticipates this will end, and I don't know how many weeks it will be, but on the other side of this, the world will be safer and we will be better supplied. Probably true, but is that really what oil is reacting to? A message addressed to Muslims around the world to the governments of Islamic countries consisting of 6 points will be published shortly. Okay. Anyways. The euro turned into a shitcoin like crypto with that oil shortage, thinking of coming back trading ZN. Oh, yeah, okay. What are the realistic chances to pass the SAVE Act? I think that there are definitely some things going on over there that make it difficult to pass an act like the SAVE Act. Well, they make it difficult to pass anything, but particularly the SAVE Act. Republicans do have an advantage. It is publicly popular, and they're pushing for it really, really hard. And what I last heard was that they had made some progress and that it is likely to pass now. So I think we may actually get it. Problem with this pen that I've got, I think, is that it's not very heavy. It's just it's too slippery. I really kind of have to, it's easier for me to write like I would write a, yeah, it's a terrible image. There you go. It's easier for me to write like I would write with a ballpoint pen with it, rather than the way that I would write with a fountain pen. Which is not necessarily good because oh, you know, so like the G, it needs to be like, G should be like, bring the G back like that. Then you can differentiate it from Y. I don't know. I enjoy doing it. It's more fun to do it on paper, though. Doing it on the computer is kind of like... So, like, part of the way that this all started was, like, they have, like, a company they work for. They'll pay for a tablet. So I'm like, oh, I should get one of these tablets that you can, like, write on. But would I really actually do that? And, like, can I get my handwriting up to a spot where I can really take notes and stuff like that? So I started practicing, and then it turns out that it was like, why would I want to do that when I can just use real paper? It's a better experience. Sorry, not sorry. Well, I tell you what, guys, I yapped too much today. We didn't get into any of the Islam related stuff. Because I was like arguing with myself about that over the weekend. Like, what do people want me to say? What do people want me to say? What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, well, number one, if I were to meet Mohammed bin Salman tomorrow, I wouldn't want to be presented to him as an enemy of Islam per se. You know, I want to work with people. And I think that by and large, you do better if you work together with other people. Okay? So number one, I think that's the principle is that you work together with people. And you can disagree with people, but you still want to be partners with them. But number two is that there are some religious and cultural things that are being brought in from not all Muslim countries, but some Muslim countries that are, I think, negative for our society. So we should be careful about who we allow to immigrate and become citizens. And we should be careful about, or actually the way I should say it is this. I think that intentional demographic manipulation by politicians is bad for society. Intentional demographic manipulation by politicians is bad. I mean, not only is it wrong, like I think you're doing something almost tantamount to genocide doing that, but it has negative effects on society overall too. Some people could seem to act like, oh no, it's like you immigrate as many people as possible. It's only objectively good. No, it's not. It's culturally damaging. You have a system. The system works a certain way. Too much change can screw up that system and hurt the things that are good and are working about that system. So there should always be, I think, a little trickle of new. Yeah, there should always be immigration. But there's a certain level of which too much is negative for the system. Okay? That's really what I'm trying to say. But those are the two things that I think are most relevant there in that situation that I'm trying to say. And, you know, I don't like it when it's like, okay, we're trying to say that, yeah, the immigration is too much and that is culturally damaging, but then we have to turn into we're not going to be friendly and try and cooperate with people, and we're going to be just very negative towards these other groups. We don't want any of them here. We hate all of those people. I don't like that. And I don't know how you... Anytime that I'm trying to teach that thing, I feel like we're veering off in that direction. Not that I think that you guys think that or that's what you're trying to do, but, you know, other people that don't know us, they might not know what we're saying. And so I have to try and make that clear. And I feel like whenever I do that I just get like that, oh, Seth, you're being naive. Let's see here. Hey, Paul, it was 71 degrees yesterday, and boom, that storm last night, windy storm, naders everywhere, and then boom, now it's 17 degrees. Yeah. Well, it's been a really warm winter. I don't know where you're. I forget where A. Paul lives. So you live in Germany? I don't remember. No, that's someone else. The more I live in Berlin, the more I understand how evil Islam is. So many teenage kids targeted this month in the city. Yeah, I don't want to go as far as to say that Islam is evil, because that kind of says to me that there's something, I don't know, like how do you call anything other than evil evil? You know, like to me, Satan is evil. Individual actions can be evil. But I think that when you start to say people or cultures or even other religions are evil, I think you're painting with too broad of a brush at that point. There are evil things in Islam. Yes, there are, in my opinion. And to be more kind of like neutral about it, there are things in Islam that will hurt your society. That will make your society less prosperous, less effective, less decrease joy, happiness. Oh, Illinois. Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. That's right. You're always talking about Illinois. It's a heartland due to the weather patterns. The patterns are chaos. Being on the line of the hot and cold constantly is what makes us farms. So southern Illinois, where I live, is now part of Tornado Alley since Tornado Alley has shifted. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I tell you what, dude. Here in Utah, we basically did not get winter. So, it turns out that we got about the same amount of precipitation that we usually do. It was just so warm that a lot of it was rain. So we only got like maybe 1 or 2 storms that were really like snow in the valley, and it was melted before the end of the day. And a lot of the ski resorts were never able to build up snowpack. So we have a historically low snowpack, even though we got average precipitation, because it's the hottest winter ever recorded. Well, it has to do with the polar vortex and the jet stream, and basically the jet stream went up really, really high and then came down over the lakes. So you get that thing where Illinois is kind of like goes hot and cold, but over here in the West, it's been hot. And there's going to be real concerns about water this year. Might not be this year, but in the next few years, Lake Powell is going to become a big issue. There's going to be problems in the West, like problems that start to become national concerns, I think. One of our hottest summers ever was 2 years ago. Yours was last year. I wonder what this year holds. Yeah. Like one of the things that I see is that, there's a lot of variability in weather. And so a lot of people will argue, oh, well, this is not actually, this is on par with the hottest weather we've ever had. So who can say that because we had this hot year that there's no global warming or stuff like that? Like people say that sort of a thing, right? But then everything that I've seen from the data at least suggests that there is an overall change in temperature. But what is the actual like net change for the climate? And what climate scientists tell us is that the extremes, you get more of the extremes. That basically, because the world is hotter overall, that results in more dramatic patterns in the jet stream, which means that because where that cold air comes from is really when those polar vortexes come and drift down, get pulled down into the United States essentially by the jet stream. So my understanding is that the extremes in weather should continue, that you'll continue to get years where it's really, really cold, and then the next year is really, really warm, or whatever the variability is. And right now in the West, we're kind of at the bottom of a drought sort of cycle too. So I don't know. People are shifting on climate change though, but it still seems like that they believe climate change is a thing, but just maybe have decided that the way they were going about it was bad. Well, I would agree with that. They definitely need a shift there. Because turning around and saying to everybody, oh, you need to have to pay 3 times as much for your heating bill, that's not going to work. That actually is going to hurt climate change, because that decreases technological progress, and we're going to need the technology to tackle the issue. So really what we need is better economic development. I think that they're realizing that now. The thing I hate is people don't understand the jet stream and how they influence the planet's weather. It adjusts, moves, flows, it's nearly alive, but people think it is stagnant and every year the same. Yeah, no, it completely shifts. Well, here in Utah, we're really vulnerable to it. Like, whether it's an El Nino year or an El Nina year, right? Like that determines very heavily how much moisture you're going to get in the southern United States. But Utah is kind of on that line. And so whether it's El Nino or El Nina doesn't matter as much as which direction the jet stream is coming. And if the jet stream comes and hits us just right, then we get tons of snow. We had a really, like 2 years ago, really intense winter that was like kind of slow at the start, but then into March, we kept getting huge snowstorms. And like the lake is almost gone, so you don't get as much lake effect snow. I really wonder what that would have been like if we had the lake effect snow. Literally what it means to live in this planet, but every time the weather drops or raises 20 degrees, they all panic saying it's the first ever. It shouldn't be happening. Well, but there are... Okay, let me tell you something, man. The drought in this southwestern United States is real. We've always been a dry place, but we are drier than we've ever been, and it's been going on for a really long time. And it is to the point now where if this trend continues in the next 5 years, you will see crisis. You will see objective crisis. The first place that you're going to see crisis is Lake Powell. Lake Powell has a dam on it that basically doesn't function correctly if the water level isn't high enough. And that lake has almost completely dried out. Like, it used to be this huge lake, and now there's so much drought, the lake is gone, and it's just a river. And now there's no snowpack. That water level is possibly going to get to the level where the dam intakes can't take the water in anymore. So you're going to lose the hydroelectric power, and it supposedly causes long-term damage to the dam. It's a problem. That's the first place that you're going to see it. And then you're going to start to see issues with the upstream cities in Utah and Colorado, being really strong for water because they have to let all of the water flow to California. And there's going to be a huge fight over that. I just love complex infrastructure. Yeah. I like to watch videos on YouTube about that stuff every once in a while. Maybe I'll do that this week. Anyways, something I like, and there are trading opportunities there, right? Because there is especially energy futures, right? That matters a lot to energy futures, but there's also, I don't know if there's like futures for water, but like there is definitely like markets and stuff about water going on. So the whole thing in Utah is basically they're trying to put together a plan to buy all of the water leases so that they can force that water to go to the lake. And a lot of it is owned by alfalfa farmers who then sell the alfalfa to China. And that's a big problem. And this year, there's going to be big water restrictions. My lawn is going to be unhappy, probably. Okay, guys. Good day today. Yeah. Well, good conversation today, at least. I didn't take a trade. I think to really be a really good day, I need to take a trade. I want to take more trades. I did my taxes over the weekend, and I lost 60 cents. A lot, because I took like 3 trades the whole year, apparently. Kept telling myself I need to take a trade every month, but I wasn't doing that. And we want to trade more. And I just haven't really been seeing the opportunities. There's been far too often when I come in and it just doesn't go anywhere, huh? Well, I guess we did get a little bit of a move up. You could have made 4 ticks. Could have made 4 ticks. Could have made $10 over here. Oh well. We'll get into a spot where there's trades for us eventually. All right, guys. Anyways, see you tomorrow. Stay